The second floor was actually a basement. Mexico, that country where Surrealism isn't an art movement, but rather the operations manual of the National Palace. It's just over a year since we inaugurated the famous second floor of the transformation, which honestly looks more like a poorly built mezzanine. And the question is no longer whether we're doing well, but rather, who's driving? Judging by the engine sound, it seems the driver is in the back seat, while the chauffeur manages things from a hammock in Tabasco. Mexico isn't a country of coincidences, but of symbols. And today those symbols are shouting what official discourse tries to hide with propaganda. A year into Claudia Sheinbaum's government, we face a crossroads that is now constitutional and existential, not ideological. What for months the official narrative dismissed as conspiracy theories from the opposition is now a harsh and cruel reality. The official discourse promised its own brand of continuity. A beautiful phrase, worthy of a fortune cookie. Reality, which ignores the newspaper, tells us something else. Are we facing a historical simulation of epic proportions? The president appears, dons the sash, poses for a photo, and smiles. But in politics, friends, power isn't like a Netflix account you can share on 2 screens at once. Is power used or lost? And what we see here isn't leadership, it's an administration of fears. Our president or branch manager must get Palenque headquarters approval, even to switch coffee brands. To clarify, it's a question. Today, the government doesn't govern but manages fear and obedience. The National Palace now appears to be just an administrative office, where fundamental decisions, the ones that move the budget, define security, and appoint loyalists, are made outside constitutional channels. The former president didn't retire to write memoirs. He strategically withdrew to ensure that the second floor is nothing more than an annex to his own bedroom. The idea of the second floor has proven to be unintentionally hilarious. They wanted to build upstairs without evicting the downstairs tenant, so the first floor remains occupied, symbolically, operationally, and above all, emotionally, by the supreme leader. This duality is fascinating. On one hand, there is the constitutional power, the one that appears in the official gazette. On the other, the real power, the one that doesn't pay taxes, appoints officials via video call, and stops investigations with a simple gesture. I have other information. History shows that when there are 2 command centers, authority doesn't split. It disappears. And in that vacuum, what grows isn't democracy, but a tangle of crossed loyalties where no one knows whom to greet first. The second floor has turned out to be a flawed structure, an architectural design that collapses because the first floor is still occupied. There is a duality of command that in any political system is the prelude to chaos. The president holds constitutional power and legal authority, but the real power lies elsewhere. The one missing from the org chart, but whose name everyone whispers in the ministry halls. In politics, a vacuum doesn't exist. When constitutional power isn't exercised, informal power devours it. This duality causes paralysis. Ministers and secretaries glance at Tabasco before signing the agreement. We see an administration unable to investigate recent corruption, as the impunity pact holds the structure together. It is a building held up by personal loyalties to an absent yet present leader, and not by an autonomous national project. Do you remember those days when the Zocalo would fill up with just a snap of the fingers? What times those were with that almost religious fervor. Today, the videos of the plazas show gaps that not even the entire social communication budget can cover up. It's not disorganization. The myth is losing momentum. Perhaps the most revealing symptom is precisely the silence of the plazas. The Zocalo, once alive with messianic fervor, now reveals that bringing in crowds is no longer effective. It's not an organizational problem, it's a problem of political entropy. The myth is evaporating. And as an example, that 20-minute eternal video, by the way, released from retirement. A kind of faith, of political life, with 3 conditions that seemed more like a kidnapper's list of demands than a reflection from a former president. The message was clear. I'm still here, and if I get bored, I'll come back. The concern was not the threat, but the reaction. A collective yawn for a leader who thinks he's the center of the universe. It's worse than losing an election that the country ignores his ramblings. When the prophet shouts and the people ask to turn down the volume, the myth is dead. It was a desperate attempt to mark territory, to say I'm still here, but the reception was lukewarm. There was no scandal like in the past, nor any organic mobilizations. For a leader who casts himself as a prophet, his people's silence is civil death. When the prophet speaks without response, it's the myth that dies. Since the economy is as cold as an ex's heart, and security? Let's not discuss that. They'll shut down our channel. The government will use the reliable Chinese box technique. Are there issues with fentanyl? Review a case file from 15 years ago. Fuel theft is at its highest. Let's discuss a colonial-era conspiracy. They manage outrage by using the past to shield themselves from the present. It's like if the captain of a sinking ship gave you a masterclass about why the Titanic hit the iceberg. Very interesting, boss. But are we drowning today? The strategy is old, but effective. Activating files from a decade ago, reopening cases from past administrations, and publicly lynching ghosts from the past. It's a massive distraction maneuver so that society doesn't ask, who's in charge today and why? Are today's problems the same or worse than before? They manage public outrage to hide their administrative incompetence. But playing with the past is dangerous. If the pact of impunity is accidentally broken, the whole system could implode, exposing not only the skeletons of their predecessors, but also the scandals of the current political family. The hardcore is still there. The names we all know, and nobody wants to invite to their party. Andy, Adan, Augusto Audemaro, the three musketeers of real power. They ensure Mrs. Claudia stays on script. The palace's silence, seen by some as prudence, now seems like clear subordination. Mexico doesn't need a president who protects the balance of a political family that thinks it owns the country. It requires someone who knows the presidential sash isn't a temporary loan with a purchase option. Mexico doesn't need more silence. It needs memory. But above all, it needs clear definitions. Claudia Scheinbaum faces the dilemma that will define her place in the textbooks: the rupture. Assuming constitutional power is exercised independently, free from patrimonialism, the previous leader's influence or submission, to accept the executor role for a failing inheritance, maintaining impossible balances until time expires. The question lingers as Palenque's clock keeps ticking. Will there be a real break, or will submission be the ultimate legacy? In this Mexican Game of Thrones, indecision is costly and paid for with history. Time is running out, and from Palenque, the real power watches, waiting for the slightest sign of weakness to reclaim what it never fully gave up. In politics, indecision always ends up charging the highest price. What do you all say? Do you think the second floor can withstand the weight of Palenque's shadow? Or are we witnessing the collapse of a structure that never had blueprints? I'll read your comments. Remember, you can make your donations via PayPal. You'll find the information in the comments section. This channel stays active because of you. It's very important to subscribe, like, and press the bell to receive notifications whenever there's new content. Thank you.